There it was, right in front of me. The moment I never thought I'd actually live through. Karen's shiny black SUV sinking nose, first into the muddy edge of my pond, the wheels spinning helplessly, mud and water bubbling up like a boiling cauldron, while she stood there on the bank shrieking, "Somebody do something!" And me? I was sitting in the cab of my old Excavator, sipping my coffee, calm as ever, watching arrogance get swallowed whole. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd be the guy who sent an HOA president's luxury car straight to the bottom of a farm pond, I'd have laughed. But that's exactly where her entitlement had led us. I was born on this farm, raised on this dirt. My dad worked it, his dad before him, and now it's mine. Life out here is simple. You rise with the sun, feed the animals, fix what's broken, and you don't answer to anyone except the weather. There are no bylaws telling you what shade of beige your fence needs to be or how tall your grass can grow. There's just the rhythm of the land, and for years, it was enough. But things changed when developers bought the cornfield a mile away and turned it into Meadow Ridge Estates, a so-called gated lifestyle community. They paved it, stuck a guard shack at the front, handed out glossy brochures, and most importantly, crowned themselves with an HOA. I figured it wouldn't affect me. They could manicure their lawns, measure their mailboxes, and host wine tastings for all I cared, as long as they stayed on their side. But then came their queen, the one who introduced herself at the farmer's market as the lifestyle chairwoman, Karen Mitchell. She wrinkled her nose at the dirt on my boots, smirked at the calluses on my hands, and said my honey jars could be elevated. That was my first taste of her superiority complex. I brushed it off. Folks like her usually get bored and move on. Except she didn't. Flyers started showing up taped to my barn doors, lists of so-called violations like unpainted structures and improper storage of large equipment, my tractors, on my land. Then HOA patrols began hovering along my fence line with clipboards, even snapping photos of my cows. When I confronted them, one guy had the nerve to say, "We're documenting potential nuisances for community review." Nuisances, as if mooing cows were a crime. And of course, Karen herself drove by daily. Window rolled down, tossing comments like grenades. "Have you thought about repainting your barn? Red would be more aesthetically pleasing." Or, "Your hay bales look sloppy from the road." Sometimes she'd shout about how her yoga group wanted to use my pond for meditation. I waved, smiled, bit my tongue, but inside, every word felt like a nail hammered deeper. The day her SUV appeared parked across my hay road. Though, that was the breaking point. I walked up, tapped on the glass, and said, "Karen, you know this is private property, right?" She smirked and said, "Technically, it's unused land. HOA streets don't allow overnight parking, and your road is just sitting here." Just sitting here. My road. The path my tractor uses every day. When I told her to move it, she rolled her window up and muttered, "Go ahead. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." And she left it there. For 3 days. Blocking me, mocking me, daring me. She even bragged to her HOA cronies that she'd solved the parking problem, turning my farm into overflow. They came by, snapped selfies with her SUV like it was some victory monument. I tried reason. I told her straight up, "This isn't community property, this is private land." She smirked, called it rural access, some nonsense she invented on the spot. And the more I fought, the more she pushed. She even staged a brunch by my pond. Big white tent, tables with mimosas, yoga mats in my hayfield. When I confronted her, she said, We're raising awareness for sustainable living. You should thank us. Thank them for trespassing, trampling my pasture, turning my chickens loose on their yoga mats. I stood there, fists clenched, listening as she lowered her voice and hissed, "Change is coming, whether you like it or not. Best to cooperate before it gets messy." That night, I sat on my porch, beer in hand, staring out at her SUV glinting in the moonlight. For the first time, I questioned myself. Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe the world was changing, and I was just a relic clinging to dirt and wood and fences that didn't matter anymore. She had money, lawyers, an entire HOA army. What did I have? A handful of cattle and a machine that smelled like diesel. I felt small, like the tide was rising and my farm was an island about to drown. For a brief, ugly moment, I thought about giving in, letting them have their way. But then I remembered my dad's words. Patience is a farmer's strongest tool. But there comes a time when you put your boot down. And that SUV sitting smug on my land was the last straw. I wasn't going to fold. Not to her. Not to anyone. So I hatched a plan. Quiet. Methodical. Farm. Style. Justice. My pond had tricky banks. Soft underneath. Waiting for a fool to trust them. I climbed into my excavator one night, rumbled it down to the water's edge, and loosened the soil, making it look firm but treacherous. By morning, you couldn't tell the difference, but I could. And soon, so would she. Sure enough, the next day Karen strutted in like she owned the deed, HOA entourage trailing behind her. She parked that SUV right by the pond, stepped out in her sunglasses, and waved like she was giving a real estate tour. "Isn't this setting divine? Perfect for weddings, concerts, retreats," she chirped. I leaned against my tractor, biting back a laugh. She had no idea. Then came the grand showdown. A caravan of HOA cars rolled up, SUVs. A golf cart with security spray painted on the side. A dozen clipboard warriors marching like stormtroopers. Karen at the front, orange blazer blazing, megaphone in hand. She boomed, "Attention farmer! Your use of this land is disruptive. Effective immediately. Meadow Ridge Estates claims authority." Her crowd clapped like she'd delivered a state address. I set my coffee down, climbed into my excavator, and fired it up. Diesel roared. Hydraulics hissed. I eased the bucket down, nudged the dirt behind her SUV, loosening the ground just enough. Karen shouted, "If that machine so much as touches my car, you'll be sued into bankruptcy." I leaned out and grinned. "Don't worry, I'll keep it safe. Very safe." The crowd shifted uneasily. Then, like clockwork, the back wheels sagged. Just an inch, but enough to see panic flash across Karen's face. She bolted to the SUV, yanked the door, floored the gas. The tires spun, mud sprayed, but the ground held her tight. The more she fought, the deeper she sank. I gave the bucket one gentle push, and gravity took over. Nose down, slowly, almost theatrically. Her precious luxury SUV slid toward the pond, gasps from the crowd, shrieks from Karen. "Stop! That's my car!" she screamed, mascara streaking as the water lapped higher. Her entourage scattered, some snapping photos, others backing away. By the time half the SUV was under, the crowd had grown. Neighbors, farmers, even teenagers on dirt bikes. Everyone watching, some laughing, some shaking their heads, but none stepping in. Karen wailed into her phone, begging for police, fire trucks, the National Guard. But when deputies showed up, they just asked one question. "Sir, this your land?" I handed over my laminated deed. They nodded, turned to Karen, and said, "Ma'am, you're trespassing. That's the only crime here," she sputtered, grasping at straws. "It's rural access. It's community spirit. He sabotaged the ground." The deputy just chuckled. "That's not a thing, ma'am, and nature doesn't count as sabotage." Her own insurance company refused the claim, saying, "Intentionally parking on private farmland is not covered." The look on her face when they said that, pure devastation. I sat back in the excavator, coffee in hand, watching the last glint of chrome disappear under muddy water. The crowd erupted in cheers, dirt bikes revved, even my cows let out a few enthusiastic moos. Karen, dripping in mud, shrieking threats of lawsuits, had nothing left. Her car was gone, her dignity buried in silt, her HOA army scattering like rats. When the dust settled, it was just me, the pond, and that half-submerged SUV sticking out like a tombstone to arrogance. I raised my cup in a quiet toast and muttered to myself, "Parking's free, but retrieval's gonna cost you." And that's when I knew the battle was won. Not with shouting, not with lawsuits, but with patience, dirt, and a little farm ingenuity. She came here to teach me about community standards, but in the end, the land itself taught her the final lesson. The message? Respect boundaries, or watch your pride sink.